that are troubles.
No, I feel that. No, it should be great. I'm just out of my office right now, so this is
Okay.
great.
We are waiting. We're waiting for one member on our commission. Rob's shooting a text out to see if he's en route. So we'll give him just a couple minutes and then we'll get started.
No problem.
You have anything about this? I think this. Bigger, so
Aaron's gonna shut this project down.
Main Street, 165.
I think that ship sailed.
1200,000.
I wanna shut it down. Give me a house. You want, he said,
Well,
he
there's
said,
the
one of the
next.
conditions in this meeting should be that they
Okay.
provide
1200
housing first.
Yeah.
So he can get a cheap downhill. The walking distance.
It's,
So what?
see attached and let me know if you have any comments. Yeah. Yeah, cause see, we're right here. Oh, yeah, I do have a comment. Where's the road?
Where's the road? Where's the sewer punching through that?
I need your help, Aaron.
No.
We'll have to talk after land use.
Okay.
Did you hear from?
No, he didn't text me back yet, so he's probably driving.
Okay, well. We'll give you 2 more minutes and then we will start. Is that all right with you, Abe?
No rush on my end.
Okay. Wonder if it is.
Sign the 4-story house. Signs. Home to. Sweet. Wow. I guess if we get one in this direction, maybe more will come. I like to work together, kind of.
Maybe, but
Tar salesman.
if we could make them. Have a connection through there and our water line through there. Our sewer main, I mean.
My daughter.
Yeah,
She just lives up the street from me. And the tricky
that makes you trees. I mean, I can keep the rest of those. Good connection with that. Like you got half, she goes out to take a transport. They're like.
And
She's like a
Aaron
friend.
Walker.
Yeah.
Happy. He likes to be happy.
We're just thinking of your.
You're happy, Pat.
I don't get what I like very often.
Okay. It's been 5 minutes, so we'll start. Hopefully Max will get here. You're all on, right? Ryan and Ty? Okay. Welcome to the Providence City Administrative Land Use Authority It is May 22nd, 2024. We're in the Providence City Office Building, 164 North Gateway Drive, Providence, Utah. I'm Scarlett Bankhead. And I have on my right, Rob Stapley, our Public Works Director. For the minute, we're missing Max Pierce, our city engineer. I'm hoping he is en route. Our first order of, well, actually, let me introduce everybody else. We actually have waited a few minutes, so it's about 3:35 p.m. in the afternoon. And we have Ryan Snow, our city manager, in attendance, Ty Cameron, our city recorder, Diane Campbell, our zoning specialist, Colton Love, our stormwater technician, and Aaron Walker from the Logan City Deputy Fire Marshal, right?
It's a mouthful.
Okay, all righty, and we also have the applicant here, Abel Porter, right? Okay.
That's correct.
All right, our first item of business is the approval of our minutes from April 30th, 2024. I caught one spelling error that I talked to Ty about. So we got that taken care of. Rob, did you have any
I
comments
watched,
on them?
I watched the video. I wasn't here for that meeting, but. So I don't know if I should abstain versus the fact that I watched it and kind of concur with the minutes I read.
I think if you watched the meeting and you feel like the minutes reflected what that meeting said, you couldn't vote.
Okay,
Especially since Max isn't here. So, I would move that we approve the minutes with that one, spelling correction.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Rob Stapley, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And we're doing this a little different now. Ty won't need to come and get my signature. He can just post them. Just putting the date they were approved, right, Ty?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Our second item of business, and our applicant is joining us by Zoom. They're asking for an extension of time for completion. The Providence City Administrative Land Use Authority will consider for approval a request for an extension of time for completion by Abel Porter for Spring Creek Townhomes located at 265 North Gateway Drive in Providence. Diane, if you want to come up and give the staff report.
Yes. One more time.
Okay.
Okay, this formal request was received May 16th, 2024. The initial public improvement application was received June 6th, 2022, and the construction drawings were signed May 16th, 2022. Findings of fact, we're using Providence City Code 1153, completion of instruction or construction, the time limit. Conclusions of law, this property is in the mixed use zone. Development subject to an administrative development agreement or an application for development and public infrastructure installation. The regulatory land use authority may consider and may grant an extension of time for completion. If an extension of time for completion is granted, an improvement completion assurance must be in place to cover the time of extension. Extension periods may be granted in 6-month increments. A maximum of 3 extension periods may be granted. Conditions, the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owner and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated.
Abel, did you get a copy of that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and do you have any questions on that?
No questions at this time.
Okay, all right, thanks, Diane. So Abel, I'd like you to just take a few minutes and explain why you feel that this is justified.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you to the committee and everyone for getting together for this today. And letting me join via Zoom. So this land, just to kind of give a background before I jump in on all this, was put under contract through a development entity headed by my dad and another family member and a business partner. And that was in 2021 or 2022. We worked full steam ahead to try to develop the initial construction drawings that we signed 2 years ago. And that's kind of why we're here now. At that time, there's a mix of reasons why we haven't been able to develop at that time. First, it was macroeconomic trends that kind of forced us to rethink construction timing, specifically interest rates and the volatility associated with them. Once we were again ready for construction, we had some, how would you put it, partnership issues within our organization, and since have restructured and actually moved the land out of the entity and to just us personally. And because of that, we were ready to construct again. And my dad, who was heading up all of this, this isn't my full-time gig. This is kind of my side help out where I can gig. And my dad ran into some health things. This was about mid 2023, spring of 2023, and has since had 2 surgeries. And just this spring, kind of passed me all of the work and preparation work that had been done up until this point, and asked me to push this to the finish line. And what that means right now, and why we're here requesting this 6-month extension, is we are currently looking for a development partner. We've actually had multiple discussions with different interested groups to come in and use our construction plans and develop that piece of land. And I don't anticipate that we will need 6 months to do that. It's the quickest way for this to be developed and in the most quality manner for it to be developed. And so we're requesting this extension purely to the point where we can get a deal done with a reputable development company for them to come in and complete the plans for us.
This is things.
No, well, yes, it is phased.
Yes, it is.
So you're not stepping away from it. You're not completely selling it and someone else is coming in and doing it. You're taking them on as a partner. Am I understanding that
Correct.
correctly?
We will continue to have skin in the game and anticipate doing so.
Okay, because since it's, I apologize, I don't remember who signed the actual, agreement. But, since that agreement needs to stay in place in order for us to extend it. So is that
Correct.
possible with the restructuring? Is the party that signed that agreement authorized to keep that agreement in place even with the restructure?
Yes.
Okay, so can you send me something that would verify that for us if we?
Yes, absolutely. Well, so just so I can clarify and get you the exact right documentation, you're looking for, just grab a piece of paper to write this down. You're looking for documentation that shows that the person who signed the initial development agreement is still an owner. Is that the right terminology I should use?
Yeah, I'm
Well-
looking for the documentation that would show that the signatures on the original development agreement still have participation in this new organization and are authorized so that that's a valid agreement.
Perfect. Yep, I can get you that.
Does that do it if the entity is no longer existing? The actual LLC or whatever it is?
That's what I'm looking for, something that's showing that kind of a transfer of
Yeah,
ownership or something.
Yep,
Yeah,
we
that's-
can get you that easy. That's very easy to do.
So Max, this is able.
Hi, Max.
um,
Nice to meet you.
sorry I'm late. Appreciate you being patient.
No
And
problem at all.
he talked about the problems with the economy, the interest rates, the partnership problems, the health problems. Those are the three main factors that have entered into, their decision to, well, that have held them up from moving forward.
Sure.
So what we have to look at, it says unforeseen circumstances may include, but are not limited to, delays caused by weather, natural disaster, natural hazards, etc., or similar act beyond the developer's control. You want to say that Latin word, Ryan? I always say it wrong. Force
majeure.
majeure. Okay. Anyway, I don't know that we could count the interest rates. Maybe not the partnership problems are kind of in there, but the health problems, I think, are something that was definitely beyond somebody's control.
And that contributed to the last year of our delays, quite frankly.
So, couple of things that we need to make sure could be met. Cause it says if an extension of time for completion is granted, an improvement completion assurance must be in place to cover the time of the extension. So we would need to have a completion assurance in place. So some type of a letter of credit or some type of a bond that goes from the date that we grant the extension to the end of the extension, the end of the 6 months. Will that be a problem?
It should not be, but I would like to make sure I go get full permission from from my dad on this.
Okay, so what that would include, it includes the public costs, which are, for this particular property, the public infrastructure cost is actually fairly minimal. I think it's less than $8,000. But the private infrastructure that, is not in place yet, that is necessary to be in place, would be the installation of the water, the sewer, any of the underground utilities, water, sewer, etc. And then the road, not asphalt. We do not want the asphalt in place at this point in time. We want to make sure all the underground and everything is in place properly. And then once that's in place, that's what you would need to have to get a building permit. You have to have water that works, sewer that works, and a road that gives emergency services access. So whether it's public or private, we need those three things in place.
What about storm drain?
And storm drain. Thank you, Max. So those are the things that we would be looking for to capture in this new bond. Would you be able to? So that's what you'll have to talk with and let us know if you can do that. Because that's definitely, by code, that's definitely one of the things that has to happen for us to be able to approve an extension.
Okay.
We would be looking to have that completion within 6 months,
Yes,
right? That he's giving assurance that the completion of those improvements will be completed within the next 6 months.
Okay,
yes.
thank you for the clarification on that.
How does the phasing work within that 6 months? They certainly can't build this whole thing in phases in 6 months.
No,
Well,
just the infrastructure, correct?
Just
Sorry,
the
maybe I
infrastructure,
misheard you.
the minimum improvements.
But the minimum improvements of the infrastructure need to, well, actually, the minimum improvements need to be completed. And then, it includes the life safety stuff, not landscaping and not vertical, but anything else, stormwater, everything would need to be completed, for the whole, you had it that you were gonna phase the buildings in 4 phases.
But I thought the minimum improvement infrastructure was gonna go in and all together.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say,
So the buildings were gonna go in phase, but the minimum improvement was gonna go in and
all together,
in one phase, right?
right? So the 6 months is to get the
That's
minimum
correct.
improvement.
That's correct.
not the minimum improvement. The 6 months is to get all of the improvements in. You just can't start
Okay.
vertical until the minimum improvements are in.
So
But
the-
no, you could take however long you need to on the, of course, we would like to see it done sooner than later, but the vertical is more up to you. We just want to make sure that the infrastructure is in place and everything is ready to go within 6 months.
Okay, so Max, just so you're aware and kind of what we talked about is we're looking for, with all these problems that we've had over the past 2 years, a slew of them, we're looking to find a development partner and JV. And so we're using this 6 month extension. We've already been in discussions with a couple different reputable groups to take over these construction plans. And so we're looking, I would have to go to them. I'm not a construction expert, but I'd also, with this 6 month completion date, that puts us at late November. I'd also want to talk with them to make sure that's a comfortable timeline to complete these improvements for these different groups. Is there any, if we were to even kick off construction in June or July, and kind of be in good faith working towards completing these improvements as soon as possible, what happens if we're not able to complete those by the end of November? Again, I'm just curious. I'm no expert in this.
I think that's why the bond assurance is there, that you may forfeit the bond assurance.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's the risk, right? Is
Yeah.
that if the.
That is the risk. The code does allow for, an additional extension, but, we wanna, I think we would just really have to see, I mean, hopefully you can get everything on track and get it taken care of and get right down the road on it.
Yeah, in this hypothetical, I'm just saying we're in good faith working towards, again, I don't know construction timelines or how long or short it takes to complete all these improvements on the piece of land. So I just want to make sure I'm able to share this with potential development partners, because it may limit our options and or spook them away if it doesn't fit with their timelines.
And remember, we're just asking for infrastructure improvements, nothing vertical and nothing landscape wise.
Yep.
Other than we do want the, like the storm ponds to be stabilized enough with ground cover that they are actually gonna act as storm ponds if I can't remember if you've got open ponds or if you were doing chambers, do you remember?
Yeah, they're plans, but Scarlett, I just want to clarify something, because you said minimum improvements and then you talked about all improvements, and I'm assuming when you say all improvements, you're talking asphalt,
Asphalt.
and that would be on every phase as well? Is that all, or is the asphalt phased?
That was planned to be on every phase as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that gets,
Curb and gutter on everything with asphalt, correct?
right, that gets a little tricky, because obviously you get pushing that late enough in the year. You may have weather impact you and schedules as well. Everybody wants to pay, at the last minute there before it storms and so, or snows. So yeah, that might be a little tricky. And I guess the other question is, even if you forfeit the bond, it's not like the city can go and finish it either. I mean, it'll be winter.
That would be, well, right, we couldn't do it at the time, at that point in time, right? Yeah, agreed.
So that, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting exactly what my concern is, Max. Thanks for voicing that over, because yeah, that's kind of what I'm concerned about. But again, I won't know until I start talking to these development firms, and maybe it's just a few months. I don't know.
I think, at one more item, is the question of if the extension isn't granted, they don't have a lot of construction currently in the ground.
they don't have any.
The risk that is present is they still have a zoning, they still have a mixed use zoning. So the development could continue as long as it was. If the approval for an extension isn't approved, then what the risk or what they would have to do is go back to the code, to the updated code, and there has been some updates to that code. And the development would have to go off of that code. And some of that has been changed you know, a couple of times in that last 2 years. Some, I think, from the city perspective, were the better. I think we've developed and gained on this. The risk, the question would be for the body is it better to continue in an extension at this point? Or to have it considered and under the new code that has been passed by the planning commission and city council. Because if you reject the extension, they still have the ability to develop the property. There is just some changes to that plan that would have to come into effect. So anyway, those are the things that make sense, Abe.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of what you're getting at with that, and to be completely honest, for us, and I would think for the city, it's in your benefit to grant this extension purely because it's the fastest way for this to become usable and amenable land for the community. I don't know exactly how we would approach if we weren't granted this extension, but it would push timetables out even further than they already are. And so, again, our intention right now is to develop this as soon as possible and to get ready to build lots and get going and go vertical as soon as next spring. That's the full intention right now.
My next question would be, how many of the units or lots, we talk about affordable housing, but how many units or lots they're planning to have as affordable units?
That is a great question. I was not in on again, I was kind of punted this in the spring, but I could check the pro forma materials that we have and get back to you on that. Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Do you have an answer? Because that was something that they ended up designing these and recording as townhomes. But my understanding was that Peralta was gonna retain ownership and rent them as apartments. Do you know if that's with your partner that's coming in with development? Are they just coming in to develop and you're going to retain the ownership of the buildings or do you know what the plan is?
How that will generally be structured? And again, we don't have a for sure partner yet, or we've talked to multiple groups, but how this will most likely be structured is we will contribute the land as equity, and whatever that value of that land is will be our ownership stake in the entire development. And so we'll max out our ownership stake.
Okay.
And will they be rented or sold units?
That will be up to our partner. But I'm happy to push for one way or the other. I'm assuming you're looking for them to be sold or would prefer them to be sold. I'm not aware of the current market up in Cache Valley, unfortunately, so I don't want to give an answer.
I would just prefer them to be, whether they're rented units, leased units, sold units, I would just prefer them to be in a price range that is somewhere near the affordable housing goals that the state has.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I completely hear that and completely understand. Again, I don't know how much power we'll have at that point in time to price these out, given the developer will be coming in to build them and will cost all of that out. But we can bring them in and I can talk to them about that as well.
Aaron, do you want to bring anything up?
Dave, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Aaron with the fire department. As far as the project in general, the way it was designed and approved, all of the buildings all of the units and the buildings on the property were slated to be sprinklered because of the single access and not having a second access. I assume that's gonna be the same. Now, as far as Providence City goes, whether they go with the extension or not, I don't know that that's gonna change where we're at because it still fits within the code. I don't like the single access. I don't think it's a real safe thing. But with the sprinkler system being, installed in them and with it being designated the townhomes in Utah fit more under the single family type stuff rather than multifamily. That's where we kind of left off was they were considered single family, and sprinkled. So that's my biggest concern with it. And I don't know that it would be affected with the extension or without, as far as the city goes. Have you got anything to elaborate on with that? Were you aware of that?
I was vaguely aware of the sprinklers. I do remember that being discussed, wherever that was 2 years ago now, as I was in and out of meetings. But so yes, I do hear you on that. I don't want to say this for sure, but I do remember our partner that we had was in discussion with the adjacent, I think to the north side of the property for an additional easement or access point. And then potentially a partner of ours may have another access point in the adjacent property to the west side of the property where there currently is a mill, which would allow you that second smooth access point on that piece of land. So what I will say again is I won't probably be on the development side if we are to continue on with this. And I'd love for you to meet with the developers, whoever they are. I'm sure you will. But the current plans do have sprinklers in them, and we'll investigate every avenue to add in another secondary access point for the project.
Okay, so a question two, and I'm not so sure how this process works with the city. So if the extension is granted, is it granted as it is designed? That is, okay, so is there room for changes if they come up with the second access down the road or this or that can still be worked out going forward? Because that may affect the project for the better. That is, if it needs to wait and come back as a little bit of a different drawing showing another access, that may alleviate the need for those sprinklers. So there may be an advantage to, a change of it, but if it can't be changed with the approval to extend, then we still have an option there.
Yep. Current plan is everything will be sprinklered. So best case scenario, you have a second access point and sprinklers in your
Okay.
town.
Rob, anything you want to bring up?
Well, I keep thinking about the fact that, the mixed use area was changed in a way or three, and I'm trying to remember what those changes were, because I'm not really involved in the planning commission's things of changing from one zone to the next. And as code changes, were there significant things that were changed in that mixed use zone as to why those changes were made? And if we're really wanting to try to get the mixed use zone fixed up, that might influence whether or not I think this is the best decision on yay or nay vote related to this extension.
The new zone, so the zone that was in place, the mixed use regulations, not the zone, the mixed use regulations that were in place at the time that this was approved, allowed no one use to be less than 20%. The new regulations allow no one use to be more than 50%. So this has been designed with an 80% retail, 20%, or excuse me, a 20% retail, 80% residential. Both the old and the new regulations are required residential, so they have to have a residential component. But now, so if this were to change the retail portion, and now they can also have commercial aside from the retail, they could have offices and whatnot. So the retail commercial portion would have to increase to at least 50%, the residential portion would have to decrease by 30% to go down to 50%. Which,
It's substantial in that it would completely change the design of this
it would,
current.
yeah, it would change the whole outlook of the
Proposed, approved
development, yeah.
development. Is that the only slash main change that you can think of in the mixed use changes? I mean, there's a parking, I've just seen a lot of parking issues lately and I start thinking, well, it looks like there's parking here.
I think there's parking
required
issues
for
that have
commercial
changed.
versus,
There's also,
Electrical vehicle, charging stations are required now. Bicycle parking and bicycle maintenance stations are required now. So there's, the parking, I can't remember how the parking worked. Between the two of them, I do think there is a little bit more parking required than there was in the first one, but if I remember right, I think you were ahead on your parking, so I don't think the parking would be an issue. The issue would be adding electric vehicle charging stations, bicycle area, and reducing the residential and increasing the commercial. So those things would be pretty significant. The biggest significant would be the change of use, the reduction of the residential versus the increase of commercial. Like I said, we actually had one developer that felt like that was advantageous, so they petitioned to change their plan, and they came in under the newer ordinance because they were able to get better commercial than they were, and they're still doing their residential, but they've been successful with the commercial. So I don't know whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
if this development could go to the south, the north, or the west to connect, there may be more commercial opportunities for those connections as well.
Yeah,
Again, I don't want to, the current partner that we have been having meetings and discussions with, I think is interested in the piece because they're also interested in the piece to the west of us, which if purchased, it would obviously fall under the new code. And that would create a true mixed use environment if they were able to parlay those two pieces together, if that changes anything.
the piece to the west is actually in Logan City. And so, and I know they have code that's kind of similar. It's different in many ways. So that zoning change would have to take place through Logan City, where it would be private access through there. That could easily take place between the two entities to create easements for the access, for that west access. But they will be working with two different entities.
But I was unaware of that.
Cities. Yeah.
Or need to go through a boundary line
Right,
adjustment.
or go through a boundary line adjustment. So, but Logan has been good to work with us. In fact, they just reached out to me on another development that's adjacent to our property. So I think that's a workable thing, working with that neighboring city. So we just have to see what the future brings there. I know that you want to know, but I think I really would feel more comfortable knowing that you can meet the demands of the construction period and the assurance, the financial, the performance security, before I make a decision. I would just feel more comfortable knowing that those things were in place or could be in place, so that there's no surprises for you as to what your expectation is, and then there would be no surprise for us when you come back and say, oh, that's more than I thought we would have to bond for, so. I don't know how Max and Rob feel, though, they can certainly. Change my mind.
Definite question marks related to those two items, and I'd feel better having some of those question marks answered as well.
I guess my feeling is if we grant the extension now, is there a reason why we wouldn't grant another one? Sounds like they're eligible for another one. I mean, in other words, I think it's pretty tough or a pretty tall order to get it done in 6 months personally.
I think so
So,
too, but
I mean,
I think it's different if they can get started on it in 30 or 60 days. Versus waiting the 6 months to get started on it.
yeah, well, that's exactly the way I look at it too, but realistically, if we give them an extension, then in my mind, I'm committed to the idea of extending them again so that they can get it finished. I don't think the city has an interest of finishing it for them, so.
The other thing is I don't know whether it has to be a 6 month, but if it was a 2 month to begin construction, at least then they have to start moving dirt. And they're not at the 6 month hour,
Right.
and they start to move any dirt, because we know that it'll take time.
Yeah.
To construct that, and so at that point, maybe that is kind of a two option. If you haven't moved any dirt in 2 months, they're not gonna make the 6 months at all.
Well, and that gets
Or,
back.
or
to
whatever that number is.
Right, I mean, the reality is when they first got approved, they had 2 years to complete it. I think that's where they're at. I mean, they haven't done anything. So in other words, it's probably not realistic to think that they would get it done in six months, in my opinion. I mean, it's possible, but not likely, in my opinion.
I guess I completely agree with you. And again, I wasn't here 2 years ago, so I can't speak to who was, but that's why we are exploring this. And in fact, I'm going to go call our 2 potential partners right now and get them for a construction schedule on when they could immediately break ground. And so I think that you'll see groups, more competent groups take over and start this construction. And then I know that they have a presence in Cache Valley and can get it done quickly, I assume. So, but I completely hear you, Max.
I guess the other question is if you're not 100% sure who the partners are going to be, then it's still conceivable that whoever they turn out to be, might want to reconsider and go for this new, the changes as well. I mean.
It
So
is conceivable. I mean, I guess what I'm hearing from the committee right now is, and I don't know, like I don't want to extend to get to an extension, but it sounds like what's best is I go make a couple calls and we reconvene in a week from now and I answer some questions and I get some assurances from different partners, and then you can at that point make a comfortable decision and we can go 6 months from when that decision is made. Am I summarizing that okay?
that's kind of where I'm leaning, but I also want to explore the 6 month thing, and maybe I missed that when I was late, but is it in the code 6 months?
Mhm.
So-
Extension periods may be granted in 6 months increments.
Okay,
So, I'm leaning that way too. I really want to make sure that the transfer of the legal entity is in place so that we're really working with the right entity for one thing, as far as the way your private makeup is set up. I don't want to go through and get expectations up only to find out that there's no transfer of authority to uphold that development agreement or the applicant, not development agreement, but the application for development that we have that's signed and in place, and the construction drawing. So we need to make sure that that's in place. We need to make sure that the completion security is viable and that really we're not just giving 6 months to figure out all that, and then you're gonna come back and want another 6 to 12 months for completion. I think we need to make sure that we are as concise as possible, so that if we do end up with an extension, we see work there, almost immediately.
No, I agree. And again, I want to reiterate that We are completely and set aligned with you and the committee and the city on this piece of land. We don't like that piece of land just sitting there doing nothing, earning nothing. We don't want that. So we are completely aligned in doing something immediately. And I know that past actions don't reflect that, but I am very, very motivated to get something done immediately. So I just want to make sure that I'm reiterated that the alignment is there on this. And also, oh, sorry, you mentioned the agreement. I'll provide documentation, but just as an assurance, the 80% shareholder of Peralta is now the 100% shareholder of the land. So I'll provide documentation for that, but the name has changed, but nothing substantial has changed as far as the ownership and who can uphold the development agreement.
Okay, Rob, do you have any?
Well, it's kind of related, but not. The contractor that you had previously for this had already been accepted or bid from your team. And now with the new partner, I don't know if that previous contract and contractor is still on board, and especially with the price changes over time.
Sorry, can you say the first part of that again? I think you might have cut out just a little bit.
You had a contractor already selected to construct all these improvements that you'll have 6 months to do. Is that still in
We
play
did.
with that same contractor?
We did, and we had a substantial deposit down with that contractor. They have our construction plans and have great relationships with the developers that we're discussing with. And I would assume, again, I don't want to speak for who our potential partner will be, but I assume that they would proceed with that contractor.
Who was the contractor of?
The grant.
Like, I thought it was somebody else.
I thought it was
That was-
Bonneville.
Yeah,
The grant bought and supplied all those parts that are sitting in that field.
oh,
So, but maybe things change.
Bonneville is the GC on that. They might have subbed through the grant, but Bonneville is the GC.
yeah,
The grant was probably just the underground of that, so. For the asset, so.
as far as the other things that normally we look for, Colton, did you have a chance to check on the NOI? I'm assuming that will all have to be reactivated.
Yeah.
You'll have to come up to Mike because he can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, the NOI, the stuff for stormwater specific things, and that's the notice of intent. With the state, obviously has been expired, they're only a year long, so that's something. Before you break ground, that will just have to be redone. And the contractor or developer, obviously, I'm sure they both have dealt with that a lot, so they can help in that process too, so.
Perfect. Colton, what was your last name?
It's Love.
Love. Okay, thank you.
So, does anybody else have any other comments they want to make? You have transferred, well, not transferred water shares, but you did, pay your fee in lieu for your water. So really, everything was really ready to go because your contractor at the time was chomping at the bit and was going to be in here almost immediately, and then things went south in a hurry. So, I think I don't want to delay this very long so that we can get you going in as much good weather as possible if an extension is granted. But, I don't want to call a meeting if you're not ready. Does 1 week give you time to come back with, because you'll probably want to reach out to your general contractor, make sure that their bid is still applicable. If it's not, that will impact the amount of performance security you'll have to put in place, and you'll have to get us those numbers from them to let us know that it is still applicable or what the new numbers would be. So does a week give you enough time to do that? Or how much time do you think you need to do that?
I'm just looking at my calendar. I think that a week is fine, but I actually, could you do Thursday? Could the committee reconvene on Thursday, May 30th? In the afternoon sometime?
I think that's probably better for you, Max, if you've got that day open, because I know next Wednesday you have a conflict.
Yeah,
I could do Thursday or Friday.
yeah, I'm available Thursday.
I'm not on the committee, but I'm not available on Thursday. It's high school graduation,
Oh, good for you.
so I won't be.
Ryan is our best Zoom technology person, so you may end up driving up here next Thursday in order to make sure that we can hold our meeting. If we end up going with that date.
Well, I was just gonna suggest too, that, do you wanna go ahead and start your homework on your side and then let us know? You know, I mean, there's no reason scheduling a meeting if you're not gonna be able to make that deadline.
I think that's a pretty good idea. I can start making some calls right when we end this actually, and shoot you an email before the end of the week, Scarlett, and or who's
Yeah.
the best person to work with scheduling?
Yes, send it to me and then, I can have Diane, I will get with Diane and then we can reach out and look at everybody else's schedules and come up with a good future date. So with that being said, I would probably entertain a motion to continue this action. Giving the developer time to do some homework and, give us a possible date for the next meeting. I don't want it to go long though.
Yeah, I mean,
I will get you emails by tomorrow or Friday, depending on who I can hear back from immediately.
yeah, and I think the suggestion of talking to your contractor is important too, because this time of year, a lot of them's booked up for the year and try to get a realistic read from them as to whether or not they can get started on it.
Absolutely.
So I agree, Scarlett, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Max Pierce, second by, Rob Stapley. I don't have any other discussion. Is there anybody in the audience that has any other question before we vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, voting was unanimous. The motion carries. We will continue this and you will get back with me within the next couple of days to set up a date for the future meeting. How does
Absolutely.
it- Okay, all right, thanks for your time, Abel, and I look forward to hearing from you so we can get this moved forward. That being said, I don't have any other business for this body, but I would like to chat with you, Aaron, for a few minutes. Does anybody have anything that they feel like we need to put on a future agenda?
Nope, nope.
Okay, that being said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our meeting is adjourned. It's approximately